Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're connecting from. The food system is central to any conversation that we have about the health of people, economies, and the planet. And it's also the source of nourishment and millions of jobs. The food system is therefore at the heart of the development agenda, but in its current form, the food system is far from achieving even its most basic goal of feeding everyone every day a healthy and sustainable diet. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to this Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations and the International Telecommunications Union Joint Knowledge Product Session, the launch of the status of digital agriculture in 47 Sub-Saharan African countries. Today, we are asking the question, how can Sub-Saharan Africa harness technology's potential to transform the food system? The perfect platform to talk about digital agriculture, the new frontier in agri-food systems transformation, and how Sub-Saharan Africa can and should be leveraging the huge potential that digital technology has to offer. I am your host, Anthony Ranamaika. A few housekeeping notes before we proceed. We will unfortunately not be able to take questions during the session, but your contributions are however welcome, and we will urge you to use the question and chat feature, as well as continue the exciting dialogue on the conference application. Thank you. Coming up, we will be presenting highlights of the reports on the status of digital agriculture in 47 Sub-Saharan African countries, followed by a panel discussion on investment opportunities within digital agriculture in Sub-Saharan Africa. So within the hour, we will hear from some of our partners and technical experts as they share key insights with us on this agency-wide comprehensive technical work and the prospects it holds for the region. To set us off, however, we will have two introductory remarks from the heads of the two collaborating agencies in the Africa region. We will hear first from Dr. Abebe Hale Gabriel, Assistant Director General and Regional Representative for Africa, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, followed by a second introductory remark by Ms. Anne Rachel Innie, Regional Director for Africa, the International Telecommunications Union, and liaison to the African Union and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. First off, we're going to have the introductory remark from Dr. Abebe Hale Gabriel, the Assistant Director General and Regional Representative for Africa, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Mr. Abebe, you have the floor.
Thank you, Anthony. Ms. Anne Rachel Innie, Regional Director for Africa, International Telecommunication Union, and liaison to the African Union and ECA. My dear colleague, Bess Crawford, Director of Strategic Planning and Officer in Charge for Office of the Innovation of FAO, distinguished panelists and participants, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you all from the FAO Regional Office for Africa based in Accra, Ghana. It's a pleasure to open this session on the launch of the status of digital agriculture in 47 African countries, which is an FAO-ITU collaboration. I want to thank ITU for an excellent collaboration with FAO on this exciting engagement. We are all well into the decade of action to realize the Sustainable Development Goals. And for this, more than ever, we need to mobilize ourselves to be a catalyst for change. While in Africa, we have the issue of having to deal with multiple and overlapping shocks and threats induced by such drivers as climate change, pest and diseases, conflicts, economic slowdowns, and so on. It's also evident that the mechanisms to manage and mitigate the impacts of those shocks are either inadequate or lacking. For example, in 2020 alone, COVID-19 may have added between 23 to 39 million people to the ranks of the undernourished in Sub-Saharan Africa. Agri-food-based businesses have been among those who suffered the most in different ways. National systems were not in a position to handle a crisis of this magnitude in terms of providing stimulus packages, for example. There are legitimate concerns that most African economies won't be able to provide adequate post-pandemic recovery options, rendering recovery to be slow and uncertain. However, there are also emerging opportunities, which, if seized, can help us accelerate actions and deliver results. The Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement that has entered into force last year is said to create the largest single trading bloc in the world, taken by the number of participating countries, with a combined GDP of over 3.4 trillion US dollars. It promises to address the problem of fragmented markets for agricultural products and services in Africa by affording more profitable regional export opportunities for companies of a variety of sizes and at different segments of the value chain, positioning them to benefit from increased economies of scale, creating more opportunities for small-scale entities such as SMEs and farmers to participate in the supply chains of large and medium-sized regional agribusinesses. Advances in innovation, particularly in digital innovation, has been spectacular in facilitating information flow, knowledge sharing, and economic transactions, significantly reducing costs and easing doing business. Clearly, digitalization represents the new frontier for agri-food systems transformation. This year, FAO begins implementing its new strategic framework, 2022-2031, which aims to support transformation to more efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable agri-food systems for better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and a better life, leaving no one behind. FAO has also invested significantly in a digital FAO. Our digital journey continues with increased efforts to ensure an efficient and effective digital portfolio, focusing on digital for impact to provide FAO digital public goods globally. Our flagship hand-in-hand initiative, Geospatial Platform, the International Platform for Digital Food and Agriculture, and the 1,000 Digital Villages Initiative put technology on the field and at the forefront of all and position us ahead on course. The hand-in-hand initiative supported by the Geospatial Platform facilitates agri-food systems transformation and sustainable rural development by targeting countries and regions with the highest poverty and hunger rates, differentiating territories and strategies, and focusing on analysis and partnerships. The 1,000 Digital Villages Initiative aims to convert villages worldwide into digital hubs to support the acceleration of rural transformation. The initiative facilitates smallholder producers access to knowledge and markets while reducing the digital gap, including the gender and rural divide. FAO's International Platform for Digital Food and Agriculture will provide a venue for dialogue, policy making, and strengthening of the linkages between agriculture and the digital ecosystem, supporting governments to enhance the benefits of digital agriculture and leapfrog by learning from their peers while addressing potential concerns. Our digital innovation strategy for agri-food systems in Africa will further accelerate the trend towards strengthening digital infrastructure by creating an enabling environment and supporting the development of national e-agriculture strategies and digital tools and services. There has been an unprecedented growth along the various agriculture value chain. For example, improved sourcing, climate-smart agriculture, financial and market inclusion through digital financial services in Africa, with almost half of 700 million overall users worldwide driven primarily by mobile money. Further scaling is required through a range of support for new or updated national sector policies and strategies, enabling infrastructure investments and digital literacy to ensure that no one is left behind. To achieve this, we need to know where to implement responsible investments and innovations in information, data, digitalization, and technologies across the agriculture value chain. Countries in Africa are at various stages of digital transformation, as evidenced by differences in how they deal with complexity, untapped potential, and information availability. Large swaths of the region's population still face acute food insecurity and lack access to basic digital technologies. Agriculture remains a priority sector in most African economies because it is a backbone of their economies. Digitalization is thus critical for maximizing the benefits of digital technologies in transforming societies, improving livelihoods, and accelerating the actions to achieve the Agenda 2030 on Sustainable Development and SDGs. Today, we're launching a new joint FAO and ITU report titled The Status of Digital Agriculture in 47 Sub-Saharan African Countries. The report aims at providing a holistic view of digital transformation in the agriculture sector of the 47 countries in Sub-Saharan Africa. The region's digital agriculture landscape is assessed through 6 key themes, namely infrastructure, digital penetration, policy and regulation, business environment, human capital, and agro-innovation, as well as analyzing the progress in digital transformation against the 6 thematic areas. The report helps policymakers identify possible areas of action to accelerate agricultural digitalization in the Africa region. The report emphasizes the need to improve digital infrastructure for universal connection, links the unconnected in Africa region, and encourage digital agricultural transformation. It's our strong hope that this publication reaches a broad audience, provides a basis for their engagement, and increases collaboration among countries, international organizations, and private entities to unlock the potential of digital agriculture in the Africa region. Africa is a growing continent. We can do better and more to actualize the agri-food systems transformation towards no poverty, zero hunger, reduced inequalities, and many more. I wish you all an engaging and productive dialogue, and I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Abebe Hel Gabriel, Assistant Director General and Regional Representative for Africa, Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, for those opening remarks. I will now call on our next distinguished guest, Ms. Anne-Rachel Ini, Regional Director for Africa, the International Telecommunications Union, and Liaison to the African Union and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, to give her introductory remarks. Please, ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Mr. Heli Gabriel Abebe, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good evening, good day, wherever you are. It is a great pleasure to welcome you to launch the joint publication between ITU and FAO on the status of digital agriculture in 47 sub-Saharan African countries. Agriculture is the main backbone of most African economies, as Dr. Abebe said. It remains a priority sector, and digitalization of the sector is fundamental to leverage the benefits of digital technologies and enhance livelihoods in the region. The advancement of digital technologies today has rapidly transformed the digital ecosystem with increased need to develop flexible and also innovative frameworks that can address multi-stakeholder dimensions. The Digital Transformation Strategy for Africa 2020-2030 emphasizes the need to harness digital technologies and innovation for inclusive economic growth, job creation, and to bridge the digital divide. The response to the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated how digitalization can be harnessed to reduce inequalities, sustain livelihoods, and improve smallholders' access to markets, finance, and technology, which in turn facilitate the growth of agribusiness, job creation, and sustainable rural transformation. This joint initiative on the study of the status of digital agriculture indeed offers a huge opportunity for increased collaboration and knowledge sharing to strengthen communities of practices, accelerate innovation, and identify ways to scale implementation of digital agriculture. Our combined effort to support and advance digital transformation by leveraging the use of digital technology in our communities at national, regional, and global levels in the agriculture sector continues to contribute significantly to the transition of Africa to a digital economy. It is essential to continue to support our member states in the digital transformation process by sharing expertise and experience to foster innovation and creativity, and through adequate engagement of the youth, who form 60% of the population of this region. With 2.9 billion people still offline in the developing world and close to 30% of Africa's rural population that still lacks mobile broadband coverage, there is an urgent need for improved digital infrastructure and increased access to digital technologies. As the United Nations Specialized Agency for Information and Communication Technologies, closing the digital divide remains at the forefront of all ITU activities. Enabling and accelerating digital transformation is at the heart of the work on the continent, and working in partnership is critical to advance digital transformation and deliver digital solutions in priority areas such as agriculture, which can only be achieved as a collective effort. Development of partnerships, collaborations with key stakeholders, and close engagement with the private sector are key for sustainability and scaling up of digital infrastructure and for the agriculture ecosystem. Digitalization presents opportunities to accelerate progress towards the achievement of SDGs, particularly SDG 2, end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. But also SDG 9, build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation, amongst others. I would like to take this opportunity to remind us all that the World Telecommunication Development Conference that takes place normally every 4 years will be held this year in Kigali, Rwanda, from the 6th to the 16th of June for the first time in Africa. So World Telecommunication Development Conference. And it aims to explore innovative models of collaboration for connectivity and digital solutions that can shape the future of digital development globally. It will be preceded by the Generation Connect Global Youth Summit, first time again, from 2 to 4 June, which provides a platform for participation for the youth to contribute and discuss opportunities and challenges related to digital technologies. Just looking around me, I can tell you there's quite a few of them that are interested in making sure that issues of digitalizing agriculture are part of this process. So furthermore, we also have another initiative that is called Partner to Connect, which is a multi-stakeholder coalition in line with the UN Secretary General's roadmap for digital cooperation. And this one aims to foster meaningful connectivity and digital transformation in the hardest to connect communities, with 4 main focus areas that include connecting people everywhere, empowering communities, building digital ecosystems, and incentivizing investments. Through such initiatives, we aim to build and strengthen multi-stakeholder partnerships for sustainable adoption of digital technologies in each sector, and continue to provide extensive guidance to policymakers around the world in the development of digital policies and strategies, regulatory environments, global standards, best practices to drive innovation, and increase access to digital services by all. The launch of this joint publication is an indispensable opportunity for all of us to identify and propose concrete actions that can shape policy and create enabling environments to accelerate digital transformation for economic sustainability. Ladies and gentlemen, ITU remains committed to strengthening multi-stakeholder collaboration, sharing of experiences among member states, and enhancing digital agriculture transformation in developing countries through the increased use of digital technologies. I encourage all stakeholders to continue leveraging digital technologies by developing digital policies and strategies, report national progress such as lessons learned, case studies, and good practices that particularly contribute to digital transformation in the agriculture sector. Continue to build partnerships and foster collaboration to enhance innovation, strengthen digital infrastructure, and capacity development to advance digital transformation for all. So thank you for being here with us. Thank you for having me, and I wish you fruitful deliberations. Back to you, Anthony.
Thank you, Ms. Anne Rachel Innie, Regional Director for Africa, the International Telecommunications Union, and Liaison to the African Union and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, for those introductory remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, now we will turn our attention to why we are here, the launch of the status of digital agriculture in 47 African countries. At this junction, we will have a presentation of the overview of the FAO ITU publication presentation and provide you with some access details. So this is the launch of the publication, The Status of Digital Agriculture in 47 Sub-Saharan African countries. So the outline of this presentation, we'll look at the report structure and features, the key messages and the findings of the report, actions and opportunities for further investment. Now, what was the rationale for the reports? Essentially, the report sought to understand how countries can support the digital agriculture transformation agenda in Sub-Saharan Africa, and also look at the status of digital ecosystem in 47 countries and the overview of digital agriculture status, and also how digital agriculture investments can support youth employment, women, and the marginalized. The main sections of the reports were infrastructure. The report looked at infrastructure. It looked at the digital penetration. It looked at policy and regulations, the business environment, human capital, and the agro innovation. The report was essentially divided into 2 sections. The first section was a DEX research based on the 47 country profiles by these 6 themes. And the second part of the report looks at the findings and the opportunities for action. The The main sections, that is the infrastructure, for example, focuses on the essential infrastructure required for digitization, such as electricity, internet connectivity, and mobile coverage. The other pillar, digital penetration, also explores the degree of mobile technology penetration in agriculture, the startup ecosystem, and social media platform. Policy and regulation looks at the highlights and key legal enactments and the institutional setups related to ICT and agriculture service delivery. The business environment of the report looks or presents an outlook of supportive systems essential for investment in the agriculture sector, as well as those that enable entrepreneurship. The human capital outlook explores the literacy, skills, and employment dynamics of the human resources required to power the digital agriculture ecosystem. And lastly, the agro-innovation weighs in on the research and development environment and innovation, taking cues from existing collaborative arrangements, research agendas, and links to agriculture productivity. So within the report, you will find the country profile of 47 countries in Sub-Saharan Africa, beginning from Angola all the way to Zimbabwe. Again, looking at what I just mentioned, the infrastructure, the digital penetration, policy and regulation, and also key indicators. So for example, the infrastructure bit looks at indicators, like I said, the affordability and the features of smartphones, computers, and the ability to connect to and the coverage of broadband networks, internet access cost, as well as the affordability and the availability of these technologies that focus on the rural communities. Going further in the report, we look at the key messages and the findings. The general overview of the report looks at the majority of countries within the region having more than 50% of the population living in rural areas. Also, the report emphasizes the fact that agriculture is still an important pillar as one of the main sources of income. And lastly, smallholder farmers are still dominant in the majority of countries. So we are looking at 250 million farmers and pastoralists. Going further in the report, we also look at electricity being mostly concentrated in the urban areas. We look at the report looks at the availability of internet penetration with regards to 2G, 3G, and 4G, and also looks at the obstacles to use mobile applications and the lack of agriculture content, local languages not being available. For example, the report emphasizes the use of undersea cables that cover multiple countries across Africa. An example, the increase in mobile payments being adopted in many of the countries in Sub-Saharan Africa. The report also touches base on the innovative capacity in terms of literacy level of improved, growing attention to digital skills, research and development, limited innovation capacity of private sector, and also women and young girls, the low ratio in accessing digital training. The area also, the fourth area also focuses on the enabling environment and private participation. Very few countries have developed national digital agriculture strategies or policy guidelines to digitalization in agriculture, fisheries, and forestries. There's also the lack of mature, innovative landscape to support startups. And above all, there's also limited entrepreneurial skills, especially among rural agriculture communities. Now, what were the highlights of the reports? The potential for digital agriculture transformation, growing youth population, increased mobile penetration, exchange of knowledge and lessons among countries, the need to remove the existing barriers for digital transformation. An enabling business environment is fundamental to attract investment in digital agriculture. And also we need to prioritize connection of undersea cables to improve broadband access. In addition, there's also the need for customized digital skills development programs, which are essential to address low digital skills in the population. There's also the need for national strategies needed to be developed. Existing ICT policies are not fully aligned to existing agriculture policies, and this is something that is critical to facilitating the digitization and transformation of the agriculture value chain, and also increase collaborations among countries, organizations, and the private entities. The report also touches on what are the actions and opportunities available and possible interventions for stakeholders. For policymakers, we need to continue improving the basic infrastructure and the basic national services, continue improving literacy and digital literacy for all age, more investment in research and development, continue to improve policy and environment, and enhance the public-private partnerships. For the financial institutions, provide financial support for digital agriculture, relevant activities, expanding the target of beneficiaries with affordable services. Within academia, the research institutions and the extension agencies, there's a need to enhance research capacity in agriculture and relevant technologies of researchers, capacity development training, or digital extension services. Within the private sector, we need to take a leading role in agri-tech and innovation. We need to transfer technology to the agriculture sector. There's a call to action that the joint report proposes, and this is the FOITU Digital Agriculture call to action. Number one, it is essential that UN agencies, the government, civil society organizations, development partners, and other key stakeholders engage closely with the private sector to support policymakers to create an enabling environment and sustainable digital ecosystem driven by national digital agriculture strategies. The second call for action is that digitization of agriculture can be fostered through pilots, digital extension services mechanisms, and digital public goods to support smallholder farmers to gradually transform the agribusiness approach. The third call for action is digital incubators, accelerators, and labs of some models that can be explored and promoted to support the digital skills and the agro-entrepreneurship, particularly for women and the youth. The fourth call for action is the private sector and the fact that they can play a key role in developing scalable digital solutions to address local situations. And lastly, digitalization creates an opportunity for closer engagement of all stakeholders. The reports can be accessed at the following link. So if you want to access the full reports, you can find the reports at the below link. Kindly take note, we'll post the link in the comment section for everyone to access the reports. One additional note is that currently the English version of the report is what is available. And in due time, pretty soon, we're going to make a French version of the reports available. So ladies and gentlemen, this is a brief overview and highlights of the report, the status of digital agriculture in 47 African countries, Sub-Saharan African countries. Thank you. So next on our agenda, we're going to have a panel discussion, investing opportunities with digital agriculture in Sub-Saharan Africa. At this moment, I will invite Mr. Hani and his co-panelists to take over the discussion on the investment opportunities within digital agriculture in Sub-Saharan Africa. Hani Iskani, if you're ready, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much, Anthony, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Indeed, now we are going to move to the panel component of the session. I think the report provides a very comprehensive baseline study of the status of the digital agriculture ecosystem, and this can trigger a lot of the reflections, discussions about what are the potential areas for investment, what is needed in terms of future investments and efforts in the region, and also what kind of collaborations and partnership across all the different development partners, private sector, governments, and other stakeholders to support, to push the digital agriculture transformation agenda. So I'm very pleased to have distinguished panelists who will share with us their own reflection about what kind of opportunities and what kind of investments are needed. So let me maybe start with Thorsten Fischer, who is the advisor working for GIZ Germany in a very important project about scaling digital agriculture innovation through startups. So Thorsten, what do you think are the potential collaboration areas to advance digital agriculture transformation in Sub-Saharan Africa's to narrow the digital divide, but also to kind of push forward the digital technologies, leaving no one behind?
Thank you so much, Hani. This is a great question. And greetings to everyone in the audience. This is a really fantastic and important event, and I'm glad that I can be part of this. Digital agriculture is, of course, a growing and very wide field, but I want to focus on a particular segment for my answer here of this sector, and that is digital innovation through startups. Obviously, I'm biased here because I'm part of a global project that supports startups in the agriculture and food sector on their way to getting investment ready. And we do this as a means to an end. Our approach is that the products and services of the startups can increase the income of people involved in the agriculture and food sector, especially in smallhold farmers. From what we see, the areas of collaboration for digital innovation obviously changes from country to country. Every country is unique, and in some cases, there are in fact too many e-commerce or crowd farming platforms, so digital innovation can create inefficiencies as the farmers do not know which solution to use anymore. At the same time, I'm a strong believer that digital innovation can solve even pressing issues in agriculture. Startups can help from farm to fork through advisory services for planting and input planning. They can help with avoiding post-harvest losses and create fairer prices for farmers. Since startups are driven by entrepreneurs who ideally see a market opportunity when they start out, and this is a parallel analysis from what we in development cooperation or the public sector may see, it is likely that they will continue to work in their sector, even if they are not commissioned by organizations like the GIZ or FAO. And I think when it comes to digital agriculture, working with startups, working with small technology-driven companies is an approach that should be promoted much, much more. And for that, I really want to make a strong case that the first area that is cross-cutting is that if you think about digital innovation, consider startups as change makers, as change agents. For that to work, we need better procurement processes that include startups, and that goes way beyond hackathons or idea challenges. It means that we understand how digital innovation is agile and changes, and therefore we need to focus more on problems than on perceived solutions. The second area is the cooperation between technical and financial cooperation. While there are by now many programs that focus on technical training, mentorship, and the like, it is still very difficult for ideas to be funded. Often banks will not take the risk that new and untested ideas often carry, or they don't understand what makes a good digital innovation and divides it from a bad one. And even for development agencies, the investment is often too low to be considered. So I strongly believe that this has to change, and to create in order to narrow the digital divide and leapfrog digital technologies, to leave no one behind and improve digital penetration. Because if one wants to build sustainable companies, you need more than capacity development. You also need financial means to use the capacity and grow your innovation. You need to hire people, invest in marketing, and so forth. And this is important because startup innovation done right is mostly bottom up. In order to create a sustainable product, you need to do a good service to your customers. Digital innovation allows you to do that because anyone that is interacting with the innovation is creating a digital trace, right? Every time we interact right now, we produce a footprint online. And this trace can and should be used to get to know your target group better and thereby deliver a better service. For startups working in the field of agriculture, the largest customer groups are smallhold farmers. So when we support startups, we support an inclusive approach that finds innovation despite the large pressure in the field. To reiterate, I see two cross-cutting areas for collaboration in digital agriculture. The first is that the public sector needs to take startups serious as solution givers and creators of digital innovation in agriculture. And second, financial and technical cooperation have to work together to fund ideas and create sustainable business models around innovation with bottom-up solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Thorsten. I think your message was very clear, is really to put the emphasis and focus on startups. And I think you made very good points in terms of really looking to this startup much more seriously, facilitate access to procurements, how they can be, you have procurement processes and procedures that are inclusive, and also to link the technical and financial cooperation, because usually indeed what happens that you provide whether you provide some funding or you provide some technical, but never you have like a comprehensive package. And I liked your point to say that, if we invest in startups, then this is the best way to reach out to smallholder farmers, because those are probably their clients. So those are very, very important insights. Let me build up on that, and now I would like to move to Ms. Yvonne Pinto, who is the lead specialist of digital agriculture innovation at the World Bank. Yvonne, perhaps you can build up a little bit on what kind of drivers you think in terms of investments, financial support that are required in the Sub-Saharan African countries, to motivate farmers and all stakeholders and agri-tech companies to, innovate, invest, adopt, introduce technologies in the agriculture sector, but also how can the digital agriculture is integrated in new policy and governance model to support digital innovation in the food and agriculture sector?
Thank you so much, Hani, for the great question. And thank you to my colleagues and panel members for the invitation to participate in this panel, particularly around this incredibly important report. On behalf of the World Bank, I'd like to say that we are extremely, extremely pleased to see this report. It lays a very good baseline for digital agriculture, for the digital agriculture revolution that we expect across the continent. If I could start by saying that to focus on your question, Hani, about the drivers that are required, what's really important is that based on the 29 countries that the World Bank currently works with in partnership around the digital economy agenda, there is quite a lot of learning to be gained. So clearly infrastructure, connectivity, and a whole of government approach. So you've mentioned in your report the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of ICT, but having the Ministry of Education involved to bring together both the strategy, the opportunity for technology and digital skills in one approach is really important. I would say that the World Bank's clients are very much country governments. Country governments are guided by the African Union's digital strategy for the continent. They are also connected to other digital development finance institutions such as the African Development Bank, the TAT initiative, and they report through the CADAP framework. So there are opportunities to essentially encourage digitization across all of these policy frameworks. As part of the World Bank's work with the 29 countries it works with, 10 of which are African countries, it tends to think of the approach in 3 levels. So the first is to create that enabling environment. That's the development of institutions, investments, and incentives. Many are around collaboration and partnership in terms of developing policies and strategies, encouraging the development of networks for information exchange, hosting data access opportunities, ensuring that government can work through an open data approach, and building on top of that, information, innovation, and incubation opportunities. So creating opportunities for foundational data access, such as farmer registries and profiles, data protection and sharing policies, information around things like weather, soil, climate, etc., and enabling access to finance and field testing of these innovations by linking them to farmers, by connecting them to finance and mentorship through incubators and accelerators, but also enabling them to respond to market prices, customers, supply chains in the environment that is contextual to a country. And then finally, to actually encourage through public-private partnerships and the encouragement of incentives to the private sector to create opportunities for agri-tech solutions, particularly things like extension advisory, precision agriculture, facilitations of market pricing and supply chains, and indeed across the value chain, so that there are inclusive opportunities for digital finance, particularly for rural populations, and for food systems such as food traceability, food safety, and indeed climate smart certification, the arrival of ESG indices and so on. There are 3 main points that I would really like to make in terms of opportunities going forwards. And this report really enables us to build from the baseline that it provides. I'd like to say that the enabling environment is clearly highly, highly important in creating opportunities, but that the importance of a digital agriculture strategy that builds that whole of government approach is something I would really reinforce that comes from the report. I would say that the lack of a mature landscape is another area that collaboration, participation, and partnership are really important. And I would say that in order to integrate innovations into that environment, there have to be a very clear understanding of the information about those innovations. So who are they? What are they? Where do they exist within the value chain? How successful are they? Do they have clear commercial pathways for development? Are they in need for more iterative testing around affordability for farmers, etc.? And who owns the data and how does that data get shared to build a vibrant ecosystem? So the World Bank is actually in the process of developing something called a digital innovation and acceleration facility to enable its client countries to actually encourage and foster that enabling ecosystem, to ensure that successful innovations have an opportunity to scale. That's a very inclusive effort that involves both investors, universities and capacity builders, both in terms of those in the acceleration and incubation community, but also formal education providers. Because not only do we need to have an increase of digital skills and capacities to deploy these solutions, we have to also address the fact that farmers' digital literacy has to improve in order to be able to use these services. I think the last thing I'd like to leave you with, Hani, is that I think it's extremely important to think about the opportunities for a regional approach. And I would say that there are some studies underway, one that I'm aware of in the Southern African development region, a 16-country study that looks about how to develop that ecosystem at a regional level. So I think those three areas, ensuring that you enhance the enabling environment, ensuring there's a whole of government approach, but that is encapsulated in an agricultural digital strategy, that innovators have the opportunity to continue to try and test within an enabling environment and receive the finance required to grow them and scale them, and indeed to look at regional approaches for ecosystems, particularly to take advantage of the Africa Free Trade Agreement and other aspects. Let me leave you with those. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. Very, very comprehensive and very valid points. I think you made a nice summary, actually, of the report, probably. And I mean, we at ITU are very supportive of the whole of government approach. I think we are now really kind of advocating for a whole of government approach for digital investments. And I think the report on its own, if you look at it, you really understand when you read it is the interdependencies between all the different aspects that creates the ecosystem. That's why it's important to make sure that you have, as you mentioned, those digital agriculture strategies that takes this holistic and whole of government approach and really try to address all the different elements of the ecosystem that needs to be addressed. I also like very much your regional and sub-regional approach. And I think this would be quite useful to accelerate the investment. Let me now move to another maybe dimension, and I would like to invite Mr. Ken Lenotto, the Digital Agriculture Strategy Consultant at FAO, to kind of maybe, Ken, if you can maybe share with us from your experience and you know, work at FAO and previously at other organizations as well, you know, insights about the business models. I mean, I think many people in the previous two speakers, I think they mentioned that startups needs to find a business case. They need to invest because they believe there is a business case in investing in digital innovation for agriculture. So can you maybe share with us some insights about those possible business models in terms of implementing digital solutions and services, and whether those are being developed as digital public goods, as we all know within the UN Digital Cooperation Roadmap. I think there is a lot of emphasis on DPGs, digital public goods, but also for other types of solutions developed by the private sector. And how can we find the right balance? How can we find the right models to, particularly with a focus on smallholder farmers? And what are the role of international organizations like ours in this whole space?
Thank you very much, Annie, for these questions. I think we have so many questions, and I'm not sure if the time will allow us to cover all those points, but let me share something. First of all, dear participants, good morning or good afternoon to you. Pleasure to be sharing this insight with you today. I would like first to say that we do not always think about the concept of business model in a comprehensive manner. As we know, business models also involve not only the revenue model, I mean, how we generate money, but also how we offer, for example, differentiated services to different types of stakeholders, or for example, the effective partnership that we need to put in place. And I will come back to that point. And also to leverage on maybe one thing that you mentioned, Annie, I would like to say that in my opinion, and also actually, as we can see, digital agriculture services can be offered and are actually offered by different type of stakeholders currently. For example, the government through the public goals that you have mentioned, including international organizations who also are supporting the development of digital public goods, and of course, by the private sector as well, and the NGOs in some cases. So we have a variety of stakeholders that are involved in that area. And it seems to me that while the private sector naturally think about business models, many public institutions do not always think about that, maybe because their first motivation is to ensure that we have some public service that is ensured and that the poor farmers are served. But the reality is that digital agriculture services that are put in place by many governments, also with the support of donors in many cases, have not been sustainable. I remember that, for example, in Benin, we started the first experiment 20 years ago in that area, and we still have many services that are not sustainable. But the other element is that even the private sector stakeholders, they are not, for now, offering effective, commercially viable business services. And actually, it is not only in Africa, even in Europe, in France, we have seen many companies or many services that are unsustainable. Maybe because it is because this specific business sector is new, but things are improving. And as you said, there are different building blocks that can be put in place so that we ensure that we have effective business models. For example, offering bundled services have proven to be very effective. In the CTA Dalberg report that was produced a couple of years ago, it has been shown, for example, that when we offer effective bundled services, production can increase by up to 150, for example. And we also need to think, and this is maybe more of the startups, to think about B2B2C services, business to business to customer services, so through intermediary acting as proxies. So these are also options to ensure that we have effective services. But we also need to insist that we need to develop more stakeholder partnership. And it is particularly imperative that collaboration between the private sector and the public institutions or international organizations is strengthened. And we can see that we have many international businesses that are currently entering the digital agribusiness segment in Africa. For me, it is really, really important that we ensure that the local digital agriculture entrepreneurs are also involved in those partnerships, in those PPP schemes. Because as one of the colleagues has mentioned, supporting young entrepreneurs is very, very important for different reasons. And one of them is that if we just implement services by leveraging international or let's say businesses, we may not be really favoring the development of local innovation that can be sustainable, that can actually, in the long term, have a strong impact in the growth of the countries. So to finish with, I would like to say that accelerating